welcome back to the next episode of StreamTime Sports. My name is Chris Stone, the community lead, joined as always by our CEO, Nick Meacham. Now, Nick, we do have another guest with us today, so I won't spend too much time on it, but I'm conscious of the fact we are recording this podcast the day after the Club World Cup final. We might not get to talk about it again because I'm going on holiday next week. Just really quickly, Nick, did you get to watch it? Any top-line thoughts? Because I got a couple.
Okay, well, I did tune in, but I tuned in at basically it was already 2-0 by that time. So immediately I'm like, oh, okay, well, I'll stick it out for a bit. Then I turned away for a bit because I had it on my phone because I didn't have any DAZN access on any of my smart devices in the house. And then there was another goal, and I missed that. So it was 3-0 down. I'd missed all the action, so I basically gave up pretty quickly after that and started keeping another eye on the Lionesses in the Euros happening in Switzerland after Wimbledon earlier. So lots to consume over a few hours, but sadly I did catch it. Obviously for business purposes as well as leisure to see everything was going okay. I didn't get to see the aftermath or pre-game with various leaders popping up for the match. But did you get a chance to see it yourself?
So I did, and those are some of my complaints, Nick. And, the broadcast was fine, the coverage was fine. I had no issues getting DAZN up on my smart TV, things like that. And I'm not even going to blame FIFA because UEFA have tried doing the same thing with like Champions League finals. I know people want to make it into like a Super Bowl, but like the pregame like music shows, the halftime shows, like they just don't feel right. Like I thought they were pretty rough, to be honest. Like I wasn't a huge fan of some of that. And I'll just admit, it's kind of weird seeing like a PIF Saudi Arabia commercial for like an American broadcast just because of our history in the region. But I think some of the shows, I'm not sure they're cut for it, Nick.
Yeah, I think it's still a work in progress to add the halftime and pre-game action to the likes of the NFL and the NBA have. So football and soccer experts are still working at that, and we still feel as far away from it as we were about 20 years ago. Despite all the US execs I've met over the years that have told me they're the ones to solve the problem. We're still in waiting. But look, 12 months now to the World Cup in the US. They'll sort it out by then, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm really optimistic. But nonetheless, we will move things along. I will bring in our guest, who is Andrew Fingerman, who's the CEO at PhotoShelter. Now, Andrew, before I start, peppering you with questions, do you have any thoughts on what Nick and I have, said? Did you get a chance to watch the Club World Cup final, given it's, was in New York where you're based at?
I did. Actually, it's practically in my backyard at the Am I allowed to say it, given that this isn't an official broadcast? It was the MetLife Stadium.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Don't worry, don't have any naming rights restrictions in place right. for the governing bodies of the world. Don't worry.
It'll be interesting to see how that all gets handled when they're playing, across the U.S. various stadiums. But it was as much a barometer as how the U.S. fans will react to how the New Jersey, New York area and traffic will react. Sprinkle in the fact that a president was coming to join the fun as well. And needless to say, I was able to get around and I was pleased about that, but did nestle in to see the bulk of the game. It was a big sports day and big sports week too, between Wimbledon and the Club World Cup. And now we're heading into the All-Star break for Major League Baseball as well. So it's an exciting time. It's not that kind of midsummer lull that some businesses get.
Well, about 21 years ago now, I actually went to New Jersey to stay with a family friend, and we got tickets to the NFL to watch the Jets play the Texans. I remember it well. And I don't remember exactly what happened because it was a long time ago, but we ended up getting to the Meadowlands at the time. And after the game, everything was gone. We didn't actually know how to get home because we didn't have Google. We didn't have those things there. We were just left in this massive vacant car park. What do we do here? I don't remember exactly what happened, but it took us hours to get home. But we learned the hard way there.
The traffic getting out of those games is not pleasant. You just reminded me of a moment growing up when it was the dead of winter after a Giants game, and my dad lost the car. And you don't have your like alarm remote, start where you could hear things far away. So we wandered around for hours until everybody was out of the parking lot and finally found the car and got home.
Oh gosh, that sounds beyond a nightmare. That sounds beyond a nightmare for me. And particularly that's the thing because in the States, in a lot of countries, particularly in the States, driving to the game is so normal, obviously because of tailgating and stuff as well. But that is not as big a thing in other sports here. Like you can go to a game in the Premier League and there's just no parking anywhere. You can't get to the ground if you're driving, basically, unless you park further afield. So definitely a different experience, that's for sure.
Now, before we jump into all the juicy things we're going to talk about today, one of the things I just wanted to call out first, Andrew, is I mentioned you're the CEO at PhotoShelter. You've been there for 17 years. That is a very good run, I feel like, in any walk of life. So I just I guess it would help to kind of give people a little bit of a background on PhotoShelter, but also just your experience, how much you've seen, whether it's you guys don't just work exclusively in sports. Like, you could probably give us a little bit of a history lesson, sort of, on what you've noticed over that time.
Sure. Thanks for asking that, Chris. It has been a career for me, even though I did a few things beforehand as well. I was started as a marketer, joined PhotoShelter as head of marketing way back in 2008, if we're counting the 17 years. And at the time, we were a fledgling company with a really, really bright idea around how to store and archive content online for the working professional photographer. Even early in the company's history, we were very popular with sports photographers, photojournalists, a lot of the folks that were traveling and needed to get content from point A to point B in a hurry. Our founders had figured out you could string together servers all across the globe, upload that content, store it efficiently, access it wherever you are, and then deliver it to clients. And so this was 2005, before anybody was using the word cloud. And release anybody, like now my mom and my grandma and my kids know it, and they know exactly what it is and the companies that power it and whatnot. But so at the time we were actually educating content producers about the value of putting your content online, making it accessible, making it not just to you, but to your clients, your customers. Let's say you're on a shoot in London and somebody wants the image that you shot at the World Series 2 years ago. Suddenly, thanks to what the founding team here at PhotoShelter built in 2005, we could do that. Even so early on, we were archiving that content. We were looking at the metadata. We were providing search based on metadata. But this was to the individual working pro, not the large brand. Over time, we saw more and more brands kind of stumbling over themselves to produce more content, and kind of going back to, let's call it 2012, the first inkling we got of all this content is just piling up on people's computers, and outside agency providers and marketers throughout your organization, and when you needed it in the moment, let's say the rise of social media, of course, everybody identified the fact that content helps people connect. And the more visual content you can provide, the better reactions and engagement you would get. So suddenly it was like, where's all that content that we made? How can we use it? How can we deploy it faster? So we started leaning into that, and we built more tools for the brands. And now we have this thriving community of thousands and thousands of independent creators, as well as a few thousand world-class brands that we work with, not just in the sports world. We work with folks like Delta Airlines and Kenneth Cole and travel brands and consumer brands and B2B folks that you wouldn't even believe need content to get their job done. So the number one kind of insight is that it's almost across industries, the need to kind of take content from the moment it is produced to all this messy stuff that happens after, get it in one place, edit it, collaborate over it, choose what needs to go into what campaign, and then get it into the hands of the people that need it to do their jobs. That became a high value function that we could serve. And that's what we do for the organizations that we work with. What we identified in the sports world was that most often that needs to happen within seconds of the action unfolding. And so we built some very unique custom workflows to both identify what's happening in the content. So who are the players, who are the brands, what's actually taking place, and then where does that content need to go? So these real-time workflows. Now we have this system that enables from the moment of capture, let's say a home run, a touchdown, a slam dunk, a goal, If that's happening within 60 seconds, it could be moving from the camera on the field, whether it's photo or video, into our system through our AI, tagged with who the player is, team, etc., and then routed automatically to the people that you have designated who need it to deploy it into the market, whether that be your social team, your web team, all the way down to even your athletes. And the last part of this is what's happening with it. So we have data that tells you what kind of engagement is that content getting once it's out in the wild and it's left the platform. And that's where things become really interesting and really rich in 2025 to say, what kind of return on investment am I getting on my content? And what do I need to be doing more to resonate with the fans? So that's the quick version, maybe quick.
That's a pretty good wrap up in 17 years, I think, Andrew, to get that into a couple of minutes. I'm curious then, where you've got to now, it sounds like there's a lot of enablement as part of it. Taking a step back, and the idea of having a dam in this industry is essential. It's every media or every sports company is trying to be a media business in particular, in some way, shape, or form. And we've seen a number of them who do different things. But it sounds like, I don't know if it is the key thing, but one of the key things is the enablement, the cross-utilization by people, all sorts of different stakeholders in the mix. Is that what you think and see as the main driver of value for when you're working with other sports properties? Is that part, or is it actually back to the origins of making sure you've really managed your assets really well so you can pull that lever whenever you do need them? Because sometimes the thing is, obviously, we catch a lot of digital stuff is that it gets stuck in the digital digital library, and then no one can find it again because it hasn't been sorted and assessed properly. What's that dynamic like?
Yeah, it's enablement is a very key piece. I almost look at it as three different universes of stakeholders. You have the contributors, who is capturing and producing this content. How can you make it as seamless as possible from the moment that that's being captured, the moment the action's unfolding? How can they get it into the system? So first, you have to kind of corral those producers. And if you think about kind of in a game day setting, you might have your staff, photographers, videographers. You might have a few freelancers that have been hired for game day, or someone that parks themselves in the tunnel as the players are arriving to see what they're wearing, so you can quickly get those kind of game day videos and photos out into the audience. But then you've got even the PR team. You might have, to reference your tailgate comment from earlier, you may have folks wandering the parking lot, taking pictures of what people are cooking in the parking lot before a game. And so it's identifying where's the content coming from that needs to get into this one central place. Then you have the team that needs to actually work on it, kind of the air traffic control, right? The routing of the content. That might be your photo editors, your video editors, and they're essential. So getting them kind of up to speed and understanding how to work with the system, and making sure that they have all access, and that's key. And for them, what's most important? Making it fast, making it as few clicks as possible, building in alerts so that they know what's arriving and when, and enabling them to get in and get out, collaborate. Sometimes we have some real-time messaging capabilities. If the boss wants to comment, don't use this one, use that one, etc. But then, to your point about enablement, the stakeholders. So what we've seen there is, years ago, it might have been the social media intern. And your social media intern can go in, do a search, download something, get it out as leisurely as they care to. And now that universe has expanded. You have scoreboard operators, you have VIP executives in the company who maybe are in the executive suite and just got a photo with the Hall of Fame quarterback that just showed up to take pictures with the sponsors. And that they need that. They want to be putting that out to social media during the game. Obviously, you do have a larger social team. You have your web team, you have your media relations team. And this goes on and on, all the way to the athletes themselves. After they shower, they take a look at their phone. They should have a ready-made package of content that they can push out to social media to help amplify your brand. And let's not forget the fans. So the fans themselves pictures with the Stanley Cup or the Super Bowl trophy, the Lombardi trophy. And so the consumption of all this content and the ecosystem of, I'm going to use the term loosely, influencers, the influential people who can help amplify your brand and share that experience into the social media audience. It's just expanded so much. So the savvy leagues and the savvy teams are figuring out how to map that ecosystem and take advantage of it in a positive way by getting those people the right content at the right time to share with the right audience.
So Andrew, I just had a follow-up question on that. I'm just wondering, with all this content you are helping manage, whether it be sport or otherwise, you talked a lot about the real-time access or near real-time access that you're sort of looking to enable for stakeholders. Do you have any idea on how much is it all about real-time, near real-time, let's call it, and the old archive side of things? Because the thing is that with a dam, you've got so much in there. Sports is, a lot of it is built around the now, the near access, the near action. But is it, obviously it's enabling the archive component? Like, do you have any idea whether it's the split of that consumption or the use? What's that look like?
So you'd be surprised, it's about 50-50. And so it's not just about real-time game day, get through the system, engage the fans in the moment, but you're producing these assets. These are real assets, and they don't depreciate over time. They appreciate if you're able to get more return on that investment by using it, finding it and using it in the future. So I like to think of a very active real-time workflow of 60 seconds. It's out. You're counting, your likes and your shares and everything like that. And that's amazing. And people are, people being our customers are so excited to just move as quickly as possible, be efficient, get it into in front of the audience. But then you have all kinds of ways you can use this content in the future to generate engagement and generate sponsor activation as well. So think about, I'll confess, this morning as I was having coffee on Instagram, and they always say you're not supposed to do that till whatever time it is of the day, but
we're all guilty. We're all guilty of that, Andrew.
World, right? Theoretically, I'm working, right? And what do I stop in my scrolling? But there's a famous baseball game, Yankees against the Red Sox, where it went into extra innings. It was a tie game. The playoff contention was on the line, and there was a foul ball hit towards the stands. Derek Jeter goes running at it, lunges towards the ball, catches it, flies directly into the stands. And I'm sitting there watching it like it happened yesterday. And you know what I'm doing? I'm engaging with the brand. And so my point there is, it's not just about the game day usage and getting it in front of the audience as quickly as possible. You have player birthdays, you have great moments, clutch moments, all kinds of additional ways to kind of resurface and repurpose this content. I'll tell a quick story if we have a minute.
We've got time.
There's a photographer who for a very long time worked for the Arizona Cardinals by the name of Gene Lauer. And Gene took a very famous photo. Didn't know it was going to be a famous photo, but I'm sure you remember Pat Tillman, who was the player for the Arizona Cardinals, who when after 9/11 enlisted in the military, went to fight in Afghanistan and ultimately was killed in action. And there was a very iconic photo of him running, helmet in hand, hair is flying in the wind. He's an enormous iconic character. And this photo became the photo that everyone remembers of Pat Tillman, to the point where it's a statue in front of the Arizona Cardinals Stadium now. And that was just sitting in Gene's archive, the Arizona Cardinals archive. And it was surfaced in the moment, but if it wasn't there, tagged and searchable, it would have been lost to history.
Yeah, and I think that raises one of the questions I have, is just to give people a bit of an idea of like the tangible impact that a technology like this can have. Because I think one of the things when I speak to my friends who don't work in sports, there's always this assumption that like all they see is big flashy lights. They assume everybody must have lots of money, lots of resources. And, we got to speak to the head of social media at PSG last week at an event we hosted, and he said he's got 18 people on the ground for the Club World Cup final. I know for a fact most clubs do not have 18 people in their social media team, let alone 18 people they can just go send to an event. Most of these are typically like one employee that's got to do like 6 or 7 jobs. And to your point, the sheer amount of like photos that are taken at a game, videos taken at a game, can you talk us through tangibly the amount of time that a technology like this can save? Because to your point, I could imagine just tens and thousands of photos to find that one Pat Tillman photo, which is now done in literally a second.
Yeah. So the teams that we work with, they do tell us a few things about the value of the technology. If you think about some of the rigor that needs to go into kind of the movement of this content as it's captured, prior to tools like ours, being able to tag the players, tag the brands, and then move that content remotely to where it needs to go, and enable the people then to deploy it. That has been kind of messy, people intensive. As recently as a few years ago, and I guarantee there's still a few teams doing it. They're removing the memory card from the camera in the at the quarter change, handing it to a runner. The runner's running into the media room. They're downloading and figuring out what needs to happen next. So fortunately, we've enabled that to be cut out. We've enabled the kind of human level tagging to be cut out by and large. I think you can't always trust the machines 100%, especially if, let's say, you have a guy that's the number 17 and they're turning and you see the number 7. So you have to use technology to look at other factors in the image. That's not always the case that we can see their face. It's not always the case that we can see the name on the back of the jersey. So we have built kind of the sort of very best here and now measures to see if we can still identify that player based on reasoning. And so what the teams have told us is that they have been able to eliminate a number of people. So I'm recalling a Buffalo Bills quote where it's three humans aren't needed at game time to work thanks to our tools. So there's some savings there, which ideally can be redeployed towards creativity instead of just kind of grunt work of running around and sort of manually processing and tagging content. So enabling the teams there to either employ more content creators or more marketers. So one of the teams that we're working with that has seen incredible success with how they're using our tools across the platform to create efficiencies, using the AI tagging to not just identify the content, but also get it to the right people and then get it out to market. The Bills tell us they're able to save $120,000 a year just by using the AI tagging and the workflow capabilities. So it's introducing efficiencies that then can be deployed elsewhere towards the team's general marketing success.
Makes your commercial case a little bit easier, Andrew, when they start sharing those sorts of numbers when you start talking to renewal time. But that's a huge thing, right? And one of the things we see, Chris, is across the entire ecosystem of sports media is how do we become more effective and more efficient with content creation, distribution and the like, because the margins for commercial success around sports media content is still quite tricky to get that balance right. So some of those costs might be massive for some, might be marginal for others, depending on the scale we're talking, but that can be enough. Those percentages here and there can make a huge difference in moving the needle and extracting that value that's needed out of sports media to make it worthwhile to invest more and more into that space. So a good example to share for sure.
Well, I was just going to say, even on that point about like teams and things like that, I was speaking to someone at Premier League Club. They launched a YouTube channel in about the last 2 years. And they said, like, we're not making a ton of money from YouTube, but we make enough money that I can hire 2 new people to my team. And those 2 new people, to the point Andrew is making, aren't necessarily there to do the grunt work, but it's to make the content even better. So even those marginal things in terms of money might also enable further creativity to do even better things, or particularly stuff with, I think, like branded content with partners. So all those little cost savings can add up to bigger things down the road.
Yeah, one thing that I'm observing that it also goes beyond the cost savings, but how can content be an enabler to generating more sponsorship revenue? And that's where things are starting to get really fun. I don't think it's a giant secret that the content producers they're not at the kind of SVP CMO level of either compensation and budgeting in the organization. So they've had to fight over time for more investment. And I think the organizations that we've seen that have leaned in to investing more in the content production are starting to see more return on that investment because they're finding more monetizable visual content that they can then go out and engage sponsors with. I'm thinking about the Boston Red Sox are a good example where for a long time they have been doing a sponsored slideshow after a game, just images of the game. And so imagine getting an LL Bean or Sam Adams to sponsor that, and it's just taking the content and seeing how does this resonate with the fans and who is a great sponsor. If it happens to feature a LL Bean logo or Sam Adams logo somewhere in that content, even better. And I'm not saying the standard kind of drop a logo on it and share it, but rather if you have the sponsored logos in the background at the stadium, that's great. And we recently launched a user-generated content collector tool, so the ability to collect fan content. And what we're seeing there is that the content and social teams are working with the sponsorship teams to say, how can we create a fan photo or video contest? What's an appropriate sponsor we can mash up, like a pet food sponsor with your dog in the favorite team jersey, and then fans love sharing that content. So monetize and monetize.
Andrew, those are some great examples of how you can really bring your assets to life. How do you just talk us through the nuts and bolts on how they actually get access to the platform? So are fans going to a white label solution by the club, or is it all just PhotoShelter as a standard app that everyone has to download and access? How are you giving everyone access to the platform?
I'm glad you're asking that because really we built the platform to be as flexible as possible for whatever the specific team's workflow or specific customer's workflow might be. So you can decide this is just a platform that's going to be used internally inside of my organization for my approved people to search and download and then do their jobs. So the marketers, the PR team, the media team. So that might be kind of like closed example number one, but probably the most common that we see because it affords the brands the most control. And we know that kind of control of your IP is very, very critical when it comes to the large sports brands. But then we've seen some teams take a kind of a very modern, very 180-degree view of the more hands I can get on my content, the better, because the more sharing, the more my brand will be amplified. So we see organizations like Premier Lacrosse making the content kind of widely open, widely accessible through we call it a portal. So, having access to your portal, we give the customer a branded portal and where you can go and search or kind of go on a journey game by game, collection by collection. And that's fun. That's fun too, because more of that content is accessible and visible. And then you'll see things in between. So what we try and do is make it just as flexible as possible to get the content in the hands of whoever might need it. We have a great mobile app. And when it comes to the athlete, we have a seamless system that can either send them a text link, an SMS, a WhatsApp link through our web app. The athlete can go and get the content already with already made captions from the social team, whoever might be sharing it with them. I love to use the Philadelphia Eagles as an example, where they just won the Super Bowl. With PhotoShelter, we had the NFL full photo team using PhotoShelter to capture the content, put it into our platform. We had the Eagles team, we had the Chiefs. They're all using PhotoShelter, and as the game is unfolding, they're all pushing content into their respective PhotoShelter as well as the leagues, and then the player social team is one instance of who needs to get that content. they're packaging that content and pushing it to the Jalen Hurts and Saquon Barkleys. And when they are celebrating their victory, they get into the locker room, hopefully, celebrate, take a shower, and right on their phone, they're already captioned, already ready to push out in one click to their pre-assigned social media profiles. And what's really exciting is that the league cares so much about this. We are aggregating the analytics on who's putting content out to the market, what content is getting the most engagement, putting that all together, and it's being presented as reports to the highest of high levels at the NFL. And then the content team can decide what to do next. So what players to lean into, what content is resonating most with those players' fans. So the level of analysis is becoming more and more powerful on what's happening on the various platforms, and that's empowering next iterations of content production and content distribution and social and sponsorship success.
Interesting.
I was just say before we dive into the athlete portion, because I do want to spend some time on there, because Nick and I have talked about there's not enough freedom given to athletes to be content creators. We were still talking about the sponsorship side of things, and I think once we talk about sponsorship, we talk about return on investment. I think it's historically been a bit difficult, but now we're seeing more and more scrutiny under where people choose to spend their sponsorship. So obviously, the brands are an important part of this. You're talking about analytics, data, things like that within the platform. Are you able to help someone like a Philadelphia Eagles, the Bills, help them with their brands to determine sort of what the value is on that sponsorship based on exposure that they're generating through that partnership by just being in the background of the game-winning touchdown, something like that?
Yeah, so that requires a little bit of off-platform legwork, but there are a few tools out there that I think are just fascinating. Like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with MVP Index is one.
Yep.
And I'm sure you guys are familiar with a handful of others that I'm just fascinated with them. I could see us combining with teams like that, companies like that have great kind of next level analytics on helping our customers understand that value.
It's an important thing, right? Because I think that's one of the challenges. I think it's the what's that cliche saying about if a tree falls over in the woods and no one hears it as it happened. And I think you really do need the better and more effective ways you can measure and see what the true reach of that content is. Only then do you start to realize how widespread the impact and audience you actually have. Because typically, whether it's many of the major leagues or even the ones underneath, they only know through their official channels, and that is only a fraction of that reach, and arguably is probably the smallest percentage of it versus all the other stakeholders that are contributing to that. So I think it's a really, really important evolution of where we've been, because it has been pretty blind to that visibility for quite some time.
Yeah, I could see us getting there in a hurry. Folks are thrilled about engagement statistics, but then they want to know what did that motivate? What did that motivate more deodorant purchases in the Kansas City area, for example?
I would love to see if they can get to a point where they can thread the consumer goods consumption in a region. That then we are on to absolute gold, I think, across this industry.
It's true. I think we're not far off, because I've seen tools not specific to the sports world, but that can analyze and help brands target specific social communities that would lend themselves to more kind of behavior drivers. So I guess if we were to stick with the deodorant example, they do use kind of first-party data from like the shop, like the like the drugstores and the supermarkets and whatnot. You can get a baseline of what kind of behavior is happening. You could say, you might want to target this team in this market if your low, your results are low or your share of market is low, and then you can actually say do the campaign for 6 months, a year, and then we'll tell you how is it performing after all of this exposure that's been generated in market. And that, I think, is it's great for the marketers too, because we know that the marketers, everybody's thrilled about getting more engagement, but when you go to the CFO and ask for more budget, they're going to ask for what's the value I'm getting on this engagement.
Now, going back towards the athletes, and the engagement's going to be a part of that. One of the things Nick and I have talked about in previous pods is it does feel like the athlete is an underutilized media tool. There are plenty of examples where the athlete may have more followers than the team or potentially the organization it's involved in. Obviously, something like the NFL is quite massive, but in our audience, we've got things like volleyball, badminton, stuff like that, where the individual personalities are sometimes larger than the organizations themselves. I mean, I think of the example, I forget how many followers it was, but when Cristiano Ronaldo left Real Madrid to go to Juventus gained like 10 million followers overnight. And being able to leverage the power of athletes, particularly today, is, they might not describe themselves as influencers, but they do influence, the people that do follow them. So you kind of gave the example of being able to empower athletes with the ability to have stuff right now, because they're not necessarily social media experts, tech experts. I imagine Saquon probably has a million photos of him taken every single game, but being able to deliver him, here's the top 10, whatever it is. How's this kind of technology helping athletes as brands or those that want to be attached to those athletes grow?
Yeah, and Chris, I was just thinking about your comment about kind of the following that these athletes are building. Now, of course, with NIL, it's starting even earlier, and so they're arriving at the league with enormous followings to begin with. And it's worth mentioning that we work with about 600 colleges and universities through the PhotoShelter platform as well. Most cases, it's athletics and beyond. But in the athletics world, that's the same need to capture the content, get it to whether it's sponsors, media, or players. It's now kind of increasing, kind of following along the same paradigm that the pro leagues have set. So now you have the collegiate athletes who are like, "Get me my content. I want it right after the game. Let's go. It's been an age-old kind of symbiotic relationship where if you talk to kind of the videographers and the photographers who work at the various teams, they have text-based relationships with the whether it's Major League Baseball case like pitchers and the great hitters and whatnot, and they will send them not just their photos from the game, but maybe the family is there, take some photos of the family, and just for decades we've known that the photographers and the players, they have this great relationship. But it's really on the teams and the leagues to kind of lean in and invest in how do you formalize this? How do you use it as a definitive program to amplify your brand? And it's really been remarkable to see each of the leagues kind of get there at some level, some capacity. What we've seen the NFL do is they've left no stone unturned, really, when it comes to how do you amplify and grow the value of the NFL brand. And so not only are they savvy about getting content to the players themselves, but they also have a college social program where, let's say, Justin Jefferson of the Minnesota Vikings scores an incredible touchdown. They're not just sending it to him, but they're also sending it to, I believe he went to LSU. So LSU is receiving content as well so that they can help amplify that moment too. So I think if depending on the category you look at, different leagues, and we're not just talking about the top marquee pro leagues, but all the way to kind of more developing leagues like pro volleyball, like the pickleball leagues. World Surf League is a fantastic example that we work with, where they're identifying this great opportunity to activate the athletes in this content relationship, get the content to them, and make sure that they have it as fast as possible to be able to share it after and long term.
Andrew, we've talked a lot about different stakeholders, ranging from the athletes to the teams to the leagues to all the brands to all the different stakeholders, even families and other affiliate universities. There's quite a lot there. Just, do you have a rough feel of where the bulk of consumption and use typically sits in any of the examples you've shared? Like, is it 75% team and a little bit of a sprinkling of everyone else, or is it really disparate? I'm imagining it's quite disparate across the lot, but if you anything you can give us a take on there?
It is fairly disparate, especially because the activation and the moment is different, right? Like the NFL, it's typically once a week where the actual game is taking place. Major League Baseball, it's just about every night. Basketball, it's just about every night. And so it does really tend to vary. But what I think is the nucleus where it starts is really you have a marketing team and a creative team. And the marketing team, there's some sort of friction. They need to get their hands on that content to do their jobs better. There's tremendous pressure coming on them to produce more and get it out to market, whether that be actual kind of social or web or the sort of next media guide or fan, even like yearbooks. And some teams have their own TV networks and magazines and things like that. So the pressure on the marketers and the designers, we do actual surveys, and they're telling us they've never been under pressure like they are under today because of this demand. The demand is insatiable. And so if there's friction in that process of getting the content, so the content, like earlier I said, the right content to the right audience at the right time, if there's friction there, they're telling us that it's impeding their ability to make money, not just kind of connect with fans and make everybody happy, but it's impeding their ability to make money. So what we've tried to do is just streamline all those processes in a way that works best for them. But that nucleus, whether it's photographers, videographers, designers, the content is there, the marketers need it. So they come to us screaming and say, you have to help us. You would think that we'd be good about this already, but we're not. We have content everywhere. Can you help get it in one place? And so then it starts in that kind of small area. And then the savvy teams, whether it be kind of our direct customer, could either be the content creator teams, so the creative teams, or the marketers. Then they will figure out how to get more audiences and stakeholders throughout their organization using it. And that's how they then kind of, Atlanta Falcons, great example. They actually went on a tour. They called it the Dam Tour. And they met with departments throughout the company to say, this is this treasure trove of content that's sitting right here inside of our organization. Here's how you can use it. Now let's talk about how you can use it to do what you do better. And so amplifying the usage, it's, in software, it's this concept of user acceptance. And so the more enablement that we can help the customer do and do through their organization, the more hands, the more searches, the more downloads. Across our platform, we're seeing over 60 million searches a year, and I think about 20 petabytes of customer data. So they're sitting on a lot of photos and videos.
I love it when someone references a number that I don't even know what that looks like. It sounds so big, but it sounds like a lot.
Yeah, it's the only thing I have petabytes of.
Just in terms of looking to start wrapping this up a little bit, Andrew, you mentioned before, like, you guys aren't just working specifically with sports. And I think maybe one of the things would be interesting is sometimes in our world, there's a lot of people that build sports specific solutions, but I would say the challenge with that is that's maybe perhaps taking a narrow lens on things, and there is things to learn. I'd just be curious whether it's within a product that PhotoShelter's developed that is then moved on to the sports world, or there's something you think other, organizations outside the sports world are doing. What sort of cross learnings have there been, or what cross learnings could there be? I'm interested. We've not necessarily focused on the other, verticals within your business, but does any of that tie over to the sports side?
It genuinely does, Chris. If you think about sports as like a capsule or a microcosm, and in some cases, especially the real-time nature of sports is causing sports to be out ahead in how things move quickly. And what we've found is that when we turn to our other customer verticals, other categories like education, I referenced, other live events like music and entertainment, but even just the corporate world generally, people are asking, how can we move quicker? How can we move content from our street team that has a event on the streets of New York City to social media? Same basic workflow as a Super Bowl and a sports team. We have actually, Chris, we talked about the great city of Cincinnati.
Love it.
And we're working with the team at Visit Cincy they are using the PhotoShelter platform for DAM, for content workflow and social distribution. They do a series of events through the year that promote the city of Cincinnati. there's culinary events, there's art events. So they need to use content that they've already produced to promote those events. And they also are engaging the various participants in those events, that could be your athletes, that to help promote it. So capturing the content and having the participants share it as well. So that's just kind of one paradigm. In the education space, we're seeing that same real-time workflow at graduation and other special events that are happening on campus too.
Well, I'm glad to hear my hometown Cincinnati are innovators. We've always been leaders. We've always been great people. So I'm glad if we're going to wrap this up, we've talked about what an excellent example. I'm just one of many that represent the great city of Cincinnati.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, Andrew, I appreciate you taking us through all of that, some of the different examples. I think if anything comes across, and Nick's mentioned this, just more and more sports organizations are no longer just, functioning bodies that produce competitions or organize teams. They have to be media first businesses. And I think technology like what PhotoShelter is providing is just simply enabling those teams to leverage that. And, you talked about 50-50 between near live versus the archive stuff. There's probably more we could have talked about from an archive perspective. But I do appreciate you coming on and giving us so much insights.
Thank you. Well, it's great to be here. I'm excited to see what's next from Sports Pro as well. So we'll be in touch.
Good stuff. Thanks, Andrew. Now, before you go, if you liked what you heard today, be sure to rate and review and just let me know what you think on social. You can find me on most social platforms as SportsPro Nick. And please do spread the word of the podcast. There's no better way of marketing than word of mouth, whether that be in person or on social media. And if you don't like what you've heard, or you think we should be doing more or less of something, then reach out and let me know, as I'd love to hear from you. Thanks, Streamtimers. Until next time.